What is the worst thing you've overheard while pretending to be asleep? Story 1. Acted asleep while family were talking amongst themselves about getting me married off to this girl who's educated but 5 years older than me. I was 15. Then she got married and divorced and absolutely ragdoll abused. So I actually feel bad about it now. Edit. Man, this story blew up. Some backstory. Girl had just graduated and family wanted her to marry. She agreed and their family made a list of possible suitors. I was one on that list. We were close-ish, but I had an almost fully developed beard at that time, so they probably assumed I was older. When it was brought up, I outright rejected because she was figuratively a big sister to me, always looking out for me. It was an arranged marriage. Their family married her off and they moved abroad. Don't know what the hell was going through their minds. They married her to a 28-year-old with mental health issues, and she'd always get beat up every day because he assumed she was cheating. Then she got pregnant and he didn't believe it was his. It was. Police got involved and then family, uncles, aunts, it disgusts me to even say that, intervened. It's now been 2 years since she's free of that monster, but he's not in jail, so it pains me to this day. I know it's not my fault, but I just have guilt that maybe I could have stopped this. And apologize for using the term ragdoll because most people wouldn't see her for months on end and she'd always been covered up and sore. I did not use it in a derogatory manner. Comments asking if she's hot? Forget you. Bloody get out more. Another edit. I got emotional, so they couldn't say this before. If you do see abuse, intervene the best you can. Call the police. Try to be supportive. Whatever you can. I guess if you are going to be involved in some way, it's kind of hard not to see how things could have happened if you had gone ahead and went with the marriage. It's true, it isn't his fault. Maybe there could have been a different solution. But why did they marry this person off when this guy had these kind of issues? How did a guy with mental health issues get to the top of these people's list? Story 2. In college, woke up to my roommate's bed creaking. I shot up to see what the heck was going on. There, I saw some woman on her back with her legs full spread eagle, and my roommate just pile driving it like it was his last day on earth. Like a good bro, I quickly lie back down and pretend to be asleep. Her, in between gasps of air. Is your roommate awake? Him. Nah, he sleeps through anything. Cue to next morning. Casually get up and turn on my PlayStation 2 and start playing some random game. My roommate's fling gets up and casually comes over and sits next to me. Her. Good morning. My name. Me. Good morning. Her name. Her. Did you sleep well last night? Me. Yeah, I can sleep through anything. As the last word left my mouth, I immediately realized it blew. She began a huge flurry of slaps at my roommate while cursing at him. He didn't care because he was too busy laughing the whole time. I'm glad I can make so many people laugh. And just to clarify for anyone asking, I did not realize who she was in the 0.05 seconds when I shot up in a haze. So to me, she was some random woman until the morning when I was able to realize who it was. She didn't really hit him hard, but it was a flurry of frustration slaps. No real harm was done. That was pretty sneaky. I think a lot of us would say they wouldn't have fallen for that trap, but to be fair, he woke up first thing that morning. He was still probably kind of groggy. I can understand if she was embarrassed by finding out that someone else was listening in, but she must have been a little desperate if she was willing to go through with it with someone else in the room. I don't know. I never went through that college dorm room kind of stuff. Story 3. Found out my dad's best friend died. They've been friends since they were literally 5 years old. Went to the same schools, stayed best friends for 50 years. When he became an alcoholic and cut off contact with everybody, my dad still reached out to him multiple times, even though he obviously wasn't ready. He eventually got off the drink and they became really close again and were calling each other every day. I woke up to the phone ringing and my dad looking at it and immediately saying to my mom, "Oh man, I think he's dead." He knew that she only called when something bad was up, and he had been hospitalized multiple times because of his drinking. I remember saying on a post years ago that I dread to think of the day that his best friend died because I knew it was coming soon because of his past. My dad is old and is the type of guy who just wants a chat, and I know a lot of people he talks to don't want to do that. Anyway, I heard it all unfold and pretended to sleep because I just didn't know what to say. I couldn't imagine losing a best friend for that long. I sat in bed for hours thinking about it, but just laying still. I didn't fully process it until I went to work, and I spent nearly 2 hours crying in the toilets. That was the only time I cried in my adult life. A 50-year friendship. That's pretty rare. This person is so empathetic to feel that way about his father's best best friend. I wonder if they were able to talk later about it. I hope so. Story 4. My mom trying to calm my dad down out of a self-unaliving fit. My brother and I had been really bad that day, and when he grounded us, we both told him that we hated him and wanted him to go away. He didn't do anything wrong. My brother and I were just a couple of immature little runts. He, I'm pretty sure blackout drunk at this point, which I had never seen and still haven't saw since then, walked into our room that night and I pretended to fall asleep. Then he just started these deep, haunting sobs that I'll probably never forget. He stumbled outside, and we could just hear him begging my mom to let him pass, and sobbing, "All I ever wanted in my entire life was to be a better dad than mine." I was only 11 or so, but it freaking destroyed my heart. I think that's the time I learned that emotional pain can actually physically hurt. I was hunched over in my bed, bawling my eyes out and on the verge of throwing up. I also felt like a jerkwad for crying over what we said. My brother was thankfully able to sleep through it all. I think about that once every 2 weeks or so, and I always message him to tell him I love him when I do. I hope he forgot about it, but being a dad myself now, I don't think it's something you totally forget. It might not hurt like it did in the moment, but I don't think you forget, like most heartbreaking things, I guess. Story 5. My then stepmom's nephews talking about what they would do to me carnally if given the chance. I was 14, they were 17, 19, and 21. Thankfully, the window to the motorhome was slightly open, and my dad heard the entire thing. I was scared of boys for a long time after that. Edit. Thank you everyone for your comments of support. A lot of people are asking what happened after. My dad ripped them a new one, and that was the end of it. About a year later, the youngest one tried to grope me when I was trying to sleep, but I was able to cover myself and he gave up. The next day I told him I knew what he tried to do, and I would tell my dad if he didn't stop. He acted like he didn't know what I was talking about, but he never tried again. A year or so after that, they got divorced, and I never had to see her or her crazy family again. I'm so sorry for those of you who have similar stories. It's been almost 30 years since this incident, and I feel like I have a very healthy view of relationships now. I hope you all are happy and healthy too. Thank you for all the awards as well. These are the first 2 I've ever received, and goes to show how awesome most people are. Story 6. I was in trade school in a different city than my hometown, so I was staying at my in-laws' home. My wife's dad was away for the weekend, and I noticed her mom was wearing fancy dresses. She's a very beautiful woman, often mistaken for my wife's sister. She also seemed extra giddy before she would go out for the evenings. On the evenings my father-in-law got home, I was in my room studying when I heard him yell at the top of his lungs, "So you doing the guy?" I can only assume she felt guilty and told him, since it was soon after he went home. Anyways, he was yelling at her for most of the night, and I heard lots of crying from both of them. I heard some pretty terrible things. They're both very nice people, and it was sad to hear them on their worst night. They've stayed together, and it looks like they're fighting to make their marriage work. My father-in-law was very cold, distant, and angry for a couple of years, but they seem to be warm towards each other again. Also, the following morning, they apologized for all the noise they made, and I told them I was just listening to music. That is a hard night to get through. Just being privy to that kind of sad and angry and nervous energy. No way I could sleep with all that noise, let alone all that negativity. I don't know what I could do to calm down. That's really unfortunate this person had to go through that. Maybe get some noise-canceling headphones. Please like and subscribe if you've made it this far. I hope you'll enjoy the rest of this video, and have a wonderful day. Story 7. When I was 9 years old, my father had an old work buddy over. They sat in the living room drinking scotch, talking about life. I had just moved into my new bedroom, which was right next to the living room. I feel that my father forgot I was sleeping next door. I was fascinated listening as they caught up on life, family, work, etc. I heard my father describe my older sister, older by 3 years. And then I heard him describe me. "She's good. She's young. She's not as mature as her older sister. I wish she would stop being so emotional. It's such a drain. She acts much younger than her age." I was horrified. I was hurt. I tried to grow up fast after that. I buried my feelings. I buried them deep. As an adult, I'm still trying to get in touch with my feelings. I don't know if this has anything to do with what he said, or if this is just a part of being an evolved adult. It's not dramatic, but it hurt to hear my father criticize me when he thought I was out of earshot. thought. I will never forget it. Story 8. I was pretending to be asleep per se, but I was well on my way. I was under anesthesia and was fading in and out. I remember closing my eyes to help move things along. I was in a lot of pain because my appendix ruptured. This happened years ago, so I can't remember all of the details, unfortunately. I remember being moved over to an operating table, and they told me to take my shirt off, I think. I heard someone go, "What do you think would happen if I poked her belly button right now?" I was an outie prior to having an appendectomy. They went through my belly button, so that's no longer the case. Anyway, someone very quickly responded, "Dude, that is not funny. Remember what happened the last time?" It's possible I was starting to dream, but I remember it making me feel a mix of amusement and cringe. Story 9. My mom getting the hell beat out of her. Update. Thanks for everything, guys. Like I said in a reply, it was 30 years ago. He and my mom were married on and off until about 7 years ago when he put her in the hospital and ended up breaking his nose and a rib. No idea where he is now, but she knows if she ever talks to him again or mentions him, she loses a son. Update 2. I noticed some people following me. You really don't want to do that. I'm what you call a very nice jerkwad. I do argue about stupid, meaningless stuff and have a very strong opinion about racism and fascists. I've only posted one original content here. I guess this is the definition of tough love. Not unwarranted tough love. When things evolve into hospital visits, I'm sure there has to be some drastic action taken. I'm glad this person is protective of his mother. Story 10. I wasn't pretending to be asleep so much as they assumed I was asleep. My in-laws thought I was still napping after dropping my kid off at school, and they started to smack talk me. They said I was a terrible mom. I didn't care about my kids at all, and they better buy a cake because I would rather sleep all day than make him a cake. It was his birthday, and my God, it was only 10 a.m. It didn't take that long to make and frost a cake for him. Anyway, I cried in my room for 2 hours before they left to buy groceries. In essence, drink themselves into a stupor before getting up and making the cake and birthday dinner my child asked for. I didn't tell my husband what they said until a week later because I didn't want to ruin his or my child's day. Story 11. When I was 12, I was staying with my aunt and cousins for a few weeks during summer. My male cousin was 4 years older than me. One night, I was laying down in the loft, my sleeping quarters for the trip, and my cousin came home late with a friend. They came up to the loft where they would normally hang out and began talking. The friend noticed that I was asleep and asked my cousin if he could touch me. There was a whole back and forth about it, but in the end, my cousin agreed to let him. His friend then proceeded to touch me. I was terrified and pretended to stay asleep. After a moment, I moved a bit and rolled over, much like you would in your sleep. That was enough to get him to stop. I freaking hate that cousin to this day. Story 12. My walls were thin. I could hear almost anything. My parents argued in what they thought was a quiet voice about divorce. Then my dad says, "You can keep the kid. He annoys the hell out of me." The next week they told me and signed the papers. Edit. Thank you everyone for the kind words. It means a lot to me. I don't really miss him much. He was mentally and verbally abusive. I would sneak out but couldn't bring my mom. That was the hardest. I'm sad but also glad he's gone. Since I'm an adult, I don't have to see him ever again. Another thing. Thanks for the award. Edit again. Man, thanks for both the awards. It's harsh to hear someone say they don't want you. I couldn't even fathom how hard it would be to hear your flesh and blood say they don't want you. What a real jerk. I have a feeling this is a guy that didn't want a family in the first place. The person seems well adjusted now. I'm glad he got out of that situation. Story 13. I was at my boyfriend's apartment staying over. His roommate also happened to have some friends who were dating there as well. I was in my boyfriend's room and they were sleeping in the living room. They were definitely smashing. Weirdest thing of it all were these literal banging sounds, like someone was hitting the freaking wall. The whole time I had to pee like a mother cover, but getting to the bathroom involved walking by the living room, and I did not want to risk it. When we woke up the next morning, someone had ripped a chunk out of one of the curtains and the TV remote was snapped in half. To this day, I don't want to know what the hell was going on in there. Story 14. Roommate's boyfriend and his friend came into my room when they thought I was asleep. It was warm and I was sleeping naked with minimal blanket coverage. I froze and pretended to sleep. They proceeded to talk about my body and how it was anyone's type. Also, how easy it was to pharmaceutically affect ladies these days. Oh, and also the friend talked about how easy it would be to steal/sell my boyfriend's boat motor that he had stored in the room. Yeah, so they were kicked out, and a friend became an ex-friend because she was ticked I'd let my boyfriend kick them out. Story 15. Sleeping over at a friend's house when I was 14. All of us on the floor in the living room. Couldn't sleep. To of my friends, guy and girl, directly next to me started doing freaky things to each other. I was extremely shy and a couple of years younger than them, so I stayed quiet and hoped they'd stop. Had to listen to them for an hour while she made weird moaning, squeaky noises. And he was singing in a weird, slightly whispery singing voice Matchbox 20 songs to her while he did whatever he was doing. That was the last time I slept over at a friend's house. Ooh, that's creepy. I can't imagine being next to that and trying to fall asleep or stay asleep while hearing that. Matchbox 20 songs? Ugh, no way. Story 16. Dude, just do it. It's not like she'll remember. She's asleep. It's okay to touch her. Last night. Noped out of there so freaking quick. Edit. Okay, so didn't expect this to blow up like it did. Holy hell. For those of you asking, yes, I'm okay. I woke up the second I heard it and pretended not to hear anything. I just went to the kitchen to get water and call my mom. I was sleeping in my friend's room while she was in the shower. Everything was okay. She understood and was very upset about it. Thank you for all the nice comments. Story 17. My mom and I were sharing a hotel room on a trip, but unfortunately only had one bed, so we had to share that too. As I was trying to fall asleep, I kept hearing the text tone from my mom's phone going off and her giggling. My parents hate each other, so I knew it wasn't my dad she was texting with. Curious, I opened my eyes just a little bit to see that she was flirting with other men while on a trip with her family and was in fact staring at a sausage pic. I couldn't really go back to sleep after that. Story 18. My friend and her boyfriend were having spicy time while we were staying in a hotel room together. There were two beds and my boyfriend and I were on the other one. She was so drunk and her boyfriend was like, "No, stop, they'll hear us, no." But he finally gave in. I kinda gave her hell about it later though. She later on smashed a different guy in my bed that same year during a party. We don't speak anymore. I guess there was never a discussion about that kind of arrangement while they're sharing a room. There needs to be some very clear communication when you have roommates. Again, I never did the whole college roommate thing, but when I was college age, I wasn't very assertive. I probably would have been shut out a lot of times by a roommate who wanted everything for themselves. Story 19. My sister got drunk and heard a loud thud, and she blacked out. Two of her friends and my mom and dad were shouting at each other, and they were saying to shut up because they didn't want to wake me up, and they were all crying, thinking she was dead. And I couldn't tell my sister was happy she didn't pass away. Now I appreciate seeing her every week. Story 20. My family were staying at a friend's house and had to share a room. My dad comes to bed hammered and says to my mom something along the lines of, "Does it impress you that I'm this drunk and can still perform?" I actually wanted to self-unalive. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.